corporations organize the industrial age, DAOs will organize the internet age. I will find out whether this is true from an agency theory perspective. So when you look at DAOs, there's three core characteristics. So first, there's decentralization, which means that DAOs don't function with a hierarchy or a central management, as can be seen on the left for traditional organization, which leads to more efficiency, equality, reciprocity, and mutual benefit. Secondly, DAOs function autonomously, which means that they work with self-executing rules, and the code is law principle, so that the rules are more rigid. Enforcement is more rigid, and therefore there's more trust and consensus to be reached. And lastly, DAOs function on public blockchain, which means that the decision and information is publicly available, and therefore there's more transparency. And when you take these together and come to a very short conclusion, DAOs have ex-ante governance mechanisms rather than the exposed monitoring and enforcement that traditional organizations use, which leads to more efficiency and less cost intensiveness. Of course, DAOs also have their drawbacks. For instance, they're less efficient and effective when it comes to internal dispute resolution. But generally, if you outweigh those factors, then DAOs are generally more on the beneficial side. If you then take these very theoretical pros and cons and turn them into more or less practical ones, this is one of the schemes that you come up with. So for instance, DAOs can use their own governance structure and their own voting process, which is very beneficial because then there's more participation and more opportunity for innovation, because more different ideas can flow. Also, rage quitting is an option because then people can leave the DAO whenever they want with rage quitting. So therefore, there's more trust because everyone that's in the DAO is actually involved. To highlight some of the negatives, DAOs only work with cryptocurrencies, which are very uncertain. Therefore, it's not very certain with regard to entering a DAO. Same holds for the member liability, because if a DAO doesn't have legal wrapper, then members are personally and unlimitedly liable, which is a huge risk. So this generally means that only if a DAO uses a legal wrapper or legal personality, these two issues can be compromised, and therefore DAOs can be a greater fit. So I'll leave the rest of the scheme as it is, and we'll go on to the final conclusions. So if you take these pros and cons, the ones that I mentioned, then this is the equation that comes up. So on the right, we have the gigs industries, and some of them are very positively suitable. So for instance, consumer discretionary, communication services and consumer staples do very well. So therefore, DAOs could be a great fit there. Others are more or less neutral, and that's due to the suitability factors that can be seen on the left. So for instance, DAOs can be a great fit for industries that want to work towards clean or renewable energy, because as I mentioned, there's more room for innovative ideas. The other factors are a bit more straightforward, like for instance, if you're more familiar with the technology, of course, it's easier to adapt, or the general features of blockchain can be an obvious reason for being a great fit. DAOs also, because of the voting and the participatory nature, can let the target group weigh in, which can be a great benefit if you want their opinion. And also automation and disintermediation are features that DAOs bring and can be a good fit. DAOs are, on the other hand, less suitable if an industry faces more regulatory risks, because the blockchain community is generally not a fan of regulations, so that wouldn't be the right match. And also, if an industry is less accessible, then it's more difficult to integrate and less of a good fit. And my last remark would be that most of the drawbacks that I mentioned can be taken away if there will be more regulation